Hello, Something Guys and Gals. This is Something Guy 912 back with you for another episode of Art Architecture within regards to the Half-Life 2 series, as we are now approaching the section where we turn the tides against our Hunter Chopper enemy with D1_Canals_11. I'm trying to make this a weekly series, at least until I have decided to start working on the aforementioned Fight for Sanctuary analysis, while Tales from the Borderlands is still fresh on my mind. So you'll be seeing more of these for the time being. I should also mention, seeing as I haven't, but I do really appreciate your guys' feedback and input regarding the things I point out, as it helps me refine my scrutinizing of aspects of the map to better gauge how realistic they would be. With that out of the way, let's hazard these waters some more. Alright, and now we are in game. Something to mention about the last video that I covered, the last map. I mentioned the clearance height for certain boats, and something to note, Tate, is with a lot of the loading screens or loading transitions between the levels being these tiny tunnels means that those boats would also not be able to hit the clearance for these tunnels as well. So it compounds the problem. You know, obviously not every level is completely like serpentine. There's obviously areas that are locked off that could suggest that like boats could have come through on different areas of the waterways, but for the tunnel specifically, they would not be able to meet it. Now, to the map itself, looking up, we have the ever-present open gap with no mesh covering. And it's also weird with this gap covering because of the fact that it's not quite at level with the circumference of the tunnel. Like, you have this weird gap here as well as this piece that's jutting out for the roof. So it's a little bit weird on this one in particular. Then we go over here into what is basically the Rebel hideout. There's a few things to point out here. First off, we'll discuss this bridge overlooking on top. Now, the geometry of this bridge does not correlate with the geometry of the last map. And while there was that destroyed bridge in the last map, I was able to get a screenshot. I'm going to present it right here, where there's a top-down level of the two maps kind of slapped together, like at least as good as they can possibly get, and you can see that the bridges don't match with one another in accordance with the geometry. And then moving on, obviously there's a zombie head crab that jumps out there inexplicably. We go up this ladder as part of the puzzle, and on this ladder, we see another familiar thing. These weird shelves that were in D1_Canals09 during the initial Hunter Chopper chase sequence. And I don't know what these would have been used for, but it's also peculiar that the ladder only goes up to this part of the shelf and not these two, so it beggars belief how you would even get up here. It almost makes me think that the ladder should have gone all the way up to near the base of this bridge geometry too, just from that small gap, but who knows. And then obviously you go up here, and then you have to push this washer. I think that's, yeah, it's a washing machine down into this dumbwaiter or like small elevator container thing to bring this ramp up to bring the airboat over. Now, the entire construction of this is a little bit peculiar. I don't know why the rebels would have had you have to go through, essentially climb up this ladder and then jump down on top of this pipe to push this down here, as opposed to just, I don't know, like having a ladder here to do that if they need to use it whenever. Or better yet, I don't see why they wouldn't have just had the washing machine just be in here by default, but obviously this is just all for the sake of a puzzle. And as for the dumbwaiter itself, with this being here, it does suggest that it was used for something else, but I don't know what it could possibly have been used for. Now, I see these little notches here, and it kind of makes me think this is supposed to be some kind of like way to measure the weight of like particular cargo coming through in and out of these canals, but obviously with the architecture around it, wouldn't really suggest boats come here very often, given this is a lot more marshy and with these pipes, you know, being where they are. Anyhow, we go past here, and we have another pipe here. But this pipe, in accordance with the other pipes, does not align. It doesn't make sense for it to be here. It's just here for set dressing, because obviously there's no architecture to suggest that this pipe would go along here, and with it being perpendicular to these pipes, obviously it's just, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And then over into this tunnel, if we look up, what is that? Meshes over the gaps again. It's just, again, it's just funny that they just pick and choose when they're going to have a mesh up here. It's just so funny. And this tunnel is kind of like almost like a sewer system, with the fact that you have these small like walkways on the side of them. And we'll see this a little bit more throughout. But going into here, we get this rebel checkpoint. Now, with the relative height of this sewer, as well as this small catwalk bridge, would again suggest that the kinds of boats that are coming in through these canals are a lot smaller than the boats that we actually see in-game, like the ones from the prior map, as I mentioned, as to also indicate the sort of inconsistent scale of certain things around the game world. Now, there's not a whole lot to discuss about the architecture around the Rebel checkpoint, although one thing that's always kind of stuck out to me was this weird fence just being plopped here, I guess. Again, probably just for set dressing, didn't really need to have much rhyme or reason to it. And obviously we go out, we go up here, we go talk to the Rebel that would be here, or I think he's actually... Oh yeah, you think he'd be right there, and then he would show us the map. Now, we've seen this map all the way back in D1_Canals06 in the Red Barn. I think it's Station 8 or Station 12. I don't remember which station it was at this point. This map will somewhat coincide with how we traverse to get to Black Mesa East, although there will be certain things about this map that are not consistent with what we see in-game. And I'll make a note of it at the end once we get to that point. But just, as I said, this map will be of import. Important for later. And then for the maps over here, these ones are really poorly detailed. Like, they're not exactly high detailed, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, these two maps are not European maps. I think these are random, like, maps for New York, or pieces of New York, because these are probably assets taken from the beta version, which was a lot more American-centric. It was going to be set in New York instead of Europe, as the official game came to be. And then we go out, we get our turret gun, and then, you know, they bring up the gates up here. Now, obviously, we have these weird cranks and some of these, like, metal things and whatnot, or the wiring, but the only way of conveying how they go up is with this crank, this valve or whatever. But obviously, there's not much about it that seems to suggest that it's moving these up. It just seems to just do it by pure magic, you know, like just complete, like, telepathy as to how these gates are going up this way. Then we move out, and we get some demonstrations of things you can shoot with the turret. We go over here, the Hunter Chopper sees us, and then, you know, flies away when we shoot at it, although it does this regardless if you shoot at it or not, as you can see. And then out here, there's a few more things that you can shoot at, which are obviously there just to be shot at, like these weird, crate stand things. Like, I don't know what these would have been used for. Like, they almost kind of make me think of a lifeguard podium. It's kind of like the, when I did the art architecture for, the school area, like, there was those weird structures that also kind of remind me of lifeguard platforms, but obviously it's not like people are going to be swimming in this. And then more to the point of the water aspects, we have these dock planks that are oddly in line with the water level here, even though obviously the water level is supposed to be drained, as we've already established. I mean, maybe these parts probably could have been submerged at points, because with this one being slightly higher than this, but obviously they're fairly dry. They don't seem to have much in the way of like looking particularly rotten or waterlogged, as it were. And then we will continue onwards. We go over here into the I guess an area where the CP officers box you in, and then they flood out here. But you know, the area that they flood you out here, they just spawn in. Like it's just a completely empty room. There's nothing in there. And then to the right of it, I mean, there's a few CP officers that come in through this room too, and this room is just a few shelves and a bench. Which is kind of weird because of the other, like, outposts that we've come across in the prior canal maps, that this would kind of just be this. And then, as to the entire nature of this weird checkpoint thing, I don't know why there's these weird, like, gates that kind of, like, guillotine slide in. My only theory is that with the giant fishing boats in mind, like these are supposed to keep them in so that they can properly dock on the side here and then offload goods up into this warehouse. As you can see, there's this ramp here that leads in from the stairway. But if that is the case, then I don't know why these two sections are completely separate, like split from each other for pedestrian access. Like there's no way for anyone who's on this side to get to that side unless by boat. At least not without swimming, and obviously they're not going to do that. So yeah, just a very peculiar design. And then over here we have an APC that shoots rockets at us, and we can shoot back at it. And this one, compared to the other one, has at least some semblance of it being able to get here, because we see a portion of road, and there's like small pieces of the concrete that you obviously can only see from this angle. So again, it would suggest that there is some weird off-ramp here. You can stop by and just park your APC to shoot at people from here, I guess, or get a nice scenic view of this. Anyway, once we deal with that, there's a few more CP officers you can shoot at, and the entire geometry around this area is just here for gameplay purposes. From the signal switches to the random placements of these dock planes, as they're not even posted in a way to suggest that people would have used them for fishing or docking. Like look at this. Like they're just randomly placed around. It's because, you know, you have an asset, use it. Along with these these perfectly pristine plywood textures present here as well, which I always enjoy seeing, in contrast to the more kind of like dingy nature of the wood in these areas. But yes, this is all just completely for the sake of gameplay. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And over to the left here, we have this small rock formation or whatever, and then we have a few more CP officers dropping barrels, and you can shoot at them or shoot at the barrels, however you see fit. But again, with this tunnel and this sewer system, and this, not to mention, again, would suggest that this is like a sewer area, possibly for civilians, possibly for like engineers or like service workers that go down here. But the entire nature of this is also very peculiar, because you have this bridge, and then the nature of the geometry around this catwalk bridge has no railing support, so people could just fall in. Not to mention, like this, I don't know why this is designed this way. Like why is there a small platform here with this weird column as opposed to just ending right here? Not to mention the fact that even though you can go up these stairs and go across here, you literally have to jump down to get to this side, and that's going to be a real confounding problem for the people who want to traverse these sewers, so to speak. Because as we proceed to the right, we have this little passageway with a door, meaning that if somebody is coming in and out into these sewers, means they have to go all the way back and up these stairs to get to this catwalk. And it's even worse because even farther down, there's a second passageway here. So that means they have to go all the way back And not only that, but they now have to like manually climb up just to get to the other side if they don't want to get dirty and, you know, gross with this water and whatnot. I mean, obviously this water probably wasn't toxic back then, but obviously, you know, people really don't want to get wet unless they're like ready to be wet, like in a situation where being wet is kind of like the case. So yeah, it's just funny in that way, considering that there's no other like means of access across here. And then with that, that is about the end of this map, but I'm going to show it on the screen now. I have put these X's in places where it's supposed to, like, there's supposedly supposed to be some kind of like blockage or way for more water to seep into different channels, but these channels do not exist in the actual game. In comparison to like as they were presented on the map. So there's just, again, and this will be something that will be more compounded upon as we go through the remaining water hazard maps, as we continue to go through the rest of the map as it was detailed. So with that, that is it for D1_Canals 11. And that was that for that map. Again, I'm going to try to make this a weekly series, so tune in next week when I go through another of the water hazard maps.